Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you on a journey, one that happens every day inside your very own head, a journey that is happening even now as you sit, as you listen, as you reflect. I want you to consider the fact that between your ears is the most powerful, complex, adaptable force known in the universe, your brain. You see, most people go through life using just enough of their brain to survive, to react, to make it to the next day. But I want to show you something different today. I want to awaken you to the untapped power inside you, because your brain, ladies and gentlemen, is not just a tool. It's a living engine of change, and how you use it determines everything. Let's start with this. Your brain is designed to change. This isn't just theory. This is biology. This is neuroscience. This is the truth. The term is neuroplasticity, and what it means is that your brain is always rewiring itself based on what you do, what you think, what you believe, and most importantly, what you repeatedly tell yourself. Every habit, every fear, every success, every failure, it's all built on networks in your brain that you created over time. But here's the truth most people don't hear. Just because your brain has been wired one way doesn't mean it has to stay that way. If you were taught you weren't good enough, your brain believed it and built circuits around it. But if you start saying, I am enough, I am worthy, I am capable, and you say it not once but repeatedly with belief, your brain doesn't just hear it, your brain changes in response to it. Why? Because repetition is the language of the brain. It learns not from the occasional inspiration, but from consistent instruction. You must stop letting your feelings dictate your decisions and start letting your decisions shape your future. Because your brain doesn't respond to feelings, it responds to focus, intention, and action. You see, your mind is like fertile soil, and your thoughts are the seeds. Whatever you plant consistently is going to grow. And the more emotional intensity you attach to those seeds, the faster they grow. Most people plant fear, plant doubt, plant worry, and then they water it with overthinking and protect it with inaction. And then they wonder why their life looks like a garden of stress. But what if you started planting faith, courage, belief, and strategy? What if you started feeding your brain with goals so big they scare you and discipline so strong it sustains you? You would watch your life change, not gradually but powerfully. Now, let's be clear. Your brain doesn't care whether what you're telling it is good or bad, true or false. It just responds. So if you say, I'm not good enough, your brain says, okay, I'll find all the evidence to prove it. If you say, I always mess things up, your brain says, let's reinforce that habit. But if you say, I learn from every mistake, now your brain starts rewiring itself to look for solutions, not problems. And that's when you become dangerous. Dangerous to every excuse, every limitation, every generational curse you were told you'd never escape from. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not born with fixed intelligence, and we are certainly not born with fixed potential. What you are capable of is not decided by your genetics but by your growth. You must stop treating your mind like a storage closet and start treating it like a command center, because your brain is not just designed to hold information, it's designed to create transformation. And that starts with what you allow into it. What you watch, what you listen to, who you hang around, the conversations you have, all of it is programming your brain, shaping your beliefs, and determining your behavior. You want to change your life, you've got to change your input. If you listen to fear-based thinking, you will live a fear-based life. If you're always surrounded by people who complain, your brain will normalize complaining. But if you expose your brain to wisdom, to strategy, to vision, to people who think bigger, move faster, and act with purpose, guess what? Your brain starts to adjust. It gets uncomfortable at first. It rebels. That's normal, because when your brain is used to surviving, success feels like a threat. But that's not the time to retreat. It's the time to press forward, because the moment of resistance is the moment of growth. Let me ask you something. What do you rehearse more? Your problems or your possibilities? Because whatever you rehearse becomes your reality. The brain doesn't distinguish between a memory and a vision. It just follows the dominant story. So, if your dominant story is, I can't, you'll create evidence for that. But if your dominant story becomes "I will," then your brain kicks into creative mode. It starts solving problems, finding patterns, building momentum. And don't forget, your emotions are chemical signals triggered by your thoughts. So when you're constantly thinking anxious thoughts, your brain releases cortisol and adrenaline, and your body gets addicted to that stress. But if you train your thoughts, if you learn to direct your focus, you start producing serotonin, dopamine, endorphins. You start to feel not just happier but stronger. You stop reacting to life and start creating it. Now here's where it gets even more powerful. The more you activate certain parts of your brain, the more dominant they become. This is called Hebbian learning, and it simply means neurons that fire together, wire together. So if every day you focus on gratitude, your brain builds stronger pathways for gratitude. If you focus on discipline, your brain builds stronger discipline circuits. You are not stuck with the brain you have, you are building the brain you live with. But let me be honest with you, this kind of transformation doesn't happen with wishful thinking. It happens with intentional living. You can't meditate on Monday and expect miracles on Tuesday. You can't visualize once and expect a breakthrough. You must train your brain daily. You must teach it how to think. You must train it to focus. You must discipline it to act. The same way you train a muscle, you train your mind, and guess what? The more you do it, the easier it becomes. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. So many people spend their lives trying to change their circumstances, never realizing that circumstances are the reflection, not the root. You don't change your life by changing your schedule. You change your life by changing your strategy. You change your thinking, which changes your actions, which changes your habits, which changes your outcomes. That's how transformation works, from the inside out. Ladies and gentlemen, don't let your past programming become your future prison. Just because you've always thought a certain way doesn't mean you have to stay there. Your past might explain you, but it doesn't define you. Your brain is not a record of what's happened. It's a map of what's possible. And the greatest thing you can do for your future is to take ownership of your thoughts right now. Let me remind you of something powerful. You were not created to live a reactive life. You were created to live a responsive, intentional, purpose-driven life. But that begins with awareness of what you think, what you believe, and how you respond. The moment you become aware of your patterns, you gain the power to change them. That is the key to every transformation. Not just knowing, but becoming aware and then acting with intention. Your brain is a servant. It follows the orders you give it. Most people let fear sit on the throne, but if you make courage your king, your brain will start to build a new kingdom. A kingdom where faith is stronger than fear, where discipline is louder than doubt, and where purpose drives every move you make. And when that happens, you stop chasing change, you become change. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your time. This is your moment. Your brain is listening to you even now, so tell it something different, tell it something bold, tell it something transformational, then act on it, because the most powerful thing you will ever do is decide not to stay the same. And here's what I want you to understand on a deeper level. Your brain is not just a place where thoughts happen, it is a battlefield. Every single day, there is a war being waged in your mind between old programming and new possibilities. Between who you were and who you are becoming, between survival and expansion. That's why some days you feel exhausted without doing anything physical, because mental war is real. The doubt that tries to silence your voice, the fear that convinces you to stay small, the voice of the past reminding you of your failures. It's all part of a war, but here's the truth. You do not win this war with inspiration alone. You win it with strategy, repetition, and vision. Your brain is always choosing what to prioritize based on what you consistently emphasize. So if you keep telling yourself that you're overwhelmed, then overwhelm becomes your dominant neural pathway. If you focus on how hard life is, your brain will filter the world to show you more of that. But if you train your brain to look for opportunity even in challenge, to look for solutions instead of spiraling into stress, then your entire world, you shifts. This isn't fake positivity. It's rewiring the lens through which your brain interprets reality. Because you don't see the world as it is, you see the world as your brain has been trained to see it. Let me give you something that will change your life if you grab it. Your brain is always learning. It is always absorbing. It is always reorganizing itself based on how you choose to live. If you spend years telling yourself you're not good at something, your brain creates shortcuts to make that belief feel true. But when you start saying, "I'm improving every day," even if you're not perfect, your brain begins to shift. It starts looking for ways to grow. It starts trying harder, reaching further, connecting new neurons, building stronger networks. That is how champions are created, not by genetics, not by luck, but by consistent belief and repetitive training of the mind. Now here's the kicker. Your brain can't tell the difference between what's happening and what you imagine with emotional clarity. That's the power of visualization. When you vividly see yourself winning, when you emotionally engage with the outcome, your brain starts preparing you for it as if it's already happening. That's why athletes don't just train their bodies, they train their minds to feel the victory before it happens. It's why high performers rehearse their future like it's already present. Because when you train your brain to experience success internally, you will find yourself pulled toward the actions that match that identity. Identity, that's the next piece. Your brain will never act in a way that consistently contradicts how you see yourself. If you still see yourself as broke, as broken, as weak, as lost, your brain will sabotage anything that conflicts with that identity. But the moment you say, "This is who I am now, I am disciplined, I am focused, I am valuable, I am capable," and you reinforce it again and again, your brain starts to believe it, and when your identity changes, your entire life begins to reorganize itself to match. This is why environment matters. Your brain is constantly taking cues from your surroundings. If you're around chaos, you begin to normalize chaos. If you're around growth, you begin to normalize expansion. Most people try to grow in environments that are designed to keep them small. That's why you must guard your environment like your life depends on it, because it does. If you want to grow, you must intentionally put yourself in rooms, in conversations, in communities that challenge your brain to think bigger, move faster, and believe deeper. But let's talk about something else powerful, emotion. Emotion is energy in motion. Every strong emotion leaves a lasting imprint in your brain. That's why trauma lasts, that's why joy lasts, because the brain records strong emotional experiences like etched stone. So if you want to change, you must learn to attach powerful emotion to the new behavior. You must celebrate your small wins. You must feel the energy of progress, because when the brain feels rewarded, it remembers. That's how you create positive addiction. You train your brain to associate success with pleasure, not pain, not fear, not anxiety. And suddenly, your brain starts craving the habits that build your future. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you programmed your morning? Most people wake up and immediately hand their brain over to the world. Notifications, drama, noise, scrolling, comparing. Stress, and they wonder why their day feels out of control. But what if you started the day by instructing your brain instead? What if you gave it commands instead of confusion? What if you said, "Today I choose clarity, I choose power, I choose gratitude, I choose action"? Your brain would start filtering your day through that lens. You would begin creating instead of reacting, because the first thoughts you have in the morning are like setting coordinates for your GPS. And your brain, your internal GPS, will do everything it can to get you to the destination you program. You don't need more motivation. You need a better mental map. You don't need to feel ready. You need to decide. Your brain rewards clarity. It rewards courage. It rewards consistency. If you keep telling your brain, "I'll try," it hears hesitation. But if you say, "I am," your brain begins to align your entire being with that decision. That's why declarations matter. That's why speaking life matters. Because every time you speak something with certainty, your brain is taking notes and adjusting course. Let me talk to the part of you that's tired. The part of you that feels like change is too hard. That feels like you've tried before and nothing changed. That part of you is not weak. It's just wired for survival. Your brain hates uncertainty, even if the current pain is familiar. That's why you sabotage yourself, because your brain equates change with threat. But here's what I need you to remember. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you are teaching your brain that it is safe to succeed, that it is safe to shine, that it is safe to break the pattern. And with every brave step, your brain begins to support your future instead of repeating your past. Ladies and gentlemen, repetition is your weapon. Repetition is your anchor. Don't do something once and expect transformation. You brush your teeth every day, not because it's exciting, but because it's necessary. Your brain requires the same maintenance. You must brush your thoughts daily. You must clean out the lies. You must rewire the fears. You must reinforce the truths over and over and over again, until the new story is stronger than the old one. This is the work of greatness. This is what separates those who wish from those who win. It's not luck. It's not magic. It's mindset. It's mental programming. It's strategy. The most successful people in the world have simply trained their brains to work for them, not against them. They've stopped feeding fear and started fueling vision. They've taken ownership of their internal world, and as a result, their external world changed. Your brain doesn't just control your thoughts. It controls your posture, your energy, your presence. You can tell when someone is thinking like a leader just by the way they enter a room. That's not ego. It's neurological alignment. It's the result of someone who has trained their mind to expect excellence, to expect challenge, to expect opportunity. And you can develop the same presence, not by pretending, but by rewiring. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You don't need fixing. What you need is upgrading. What you need is rewriting. What you need is to stop living based on expired programming. It's like running modern dreams on ancient software. It crashes every time. Your vision is too big for the current code. It's time to install new beliefs. New strategies, new habits, new emotional responses, and that starts with a decision. Your brain is always listening, always learning, always looking for cues. So give it a new cue today. Tell it who you are becoming. Speak to it with authority. Stop letting history become your prophecy. Stop letting pain become your compass. Stop letting fear become your mentor. Your brain is waiting for you to give it new instructions, new direction, new design. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. Growth is always uncomfortable because it requires the death of old patterns. But every time you push through the discomfort, you create space for your brain to stretch, to evolve, to rise. And what was once difficult becomes automatic. That's the beauty of the brain. It adapts to your new level. It learns, it locks in, it levels up. So today, ladies and gentlemen, decide that your brain will no longer be a prison. It will be your platform. Decide that your past will no longer be a ceiling. It will be your foundation. Decide that every lie you were told about yourself will be rewritten with truth, and decide that you will no longer live on autopilot, letting your brain default to patterns that don't serve your future. Because your brain is a gift, not a limitation, not a curse, a gift. And when you learn how to use it, when you learn how to train it, when you learn how to lead it, you will discover that everything you've been searching for outside of you was already inside you all along, waiting to be unlocked by the power of your own mind. As we come to the end of this journey into the workings of your incredible mind, I want you to pause, not just to reflect, but to truly own what you've heard. Your brain is not fixed. It is not frozen in the shape of your past. It is a living, evolving, responsive force that is constantly being shaped by your thoughts, your habits, your words, and your decisions. Every moment, every repetition, every act of courage is sending new instructions to your mind. And those instructions are shaping your future. You are not at the mercy of your circumstances. You are not the product of what happened to you. You are the product of what you decide to do now. Your brain will become whatever you teach it to believe. So teach it truth, teach it faith, teach it strategy, teach it to lead with vision, not fear, feed it with focus, discipline it with consistency, and honor it with clarity. because the quality of your thinking will always determine the quality of your life. This is not about information, it's about transformation, and that begins with a choice. You must choose to think higher, to speak powerfully, to live intentionally, to rewire the thoughts that no longer serve you and replace them with beliefs that move you toward purpose. Because when you shift your mind, you shift your life. So step into that power, lead your brain, and let your thoughts build the future you were born to live. Thank you.